We're going to pray first, okay? We're going to open up with a word of prayer when that lady sits down. All right, thank you. Our gracious and merciful Father, we thank you, Lord, for the Sabbath day. Lord, as we get closer to closing out, Lord, we just lift up Sister Angela here as she's going to come forth with today's message about death. Lord, I pray that we only have one death. Lord, that is our physical death, and that all of us, Heavenly Father, we get two births. So we pray for that time. And Lord, I just lift her up as she explains to us. Some of us might know, some of us might not. We might learn something here. So just speak with her through the Holy Spirit. Let us all get something out of this, Heavenly Father. Thank you for bringing us here after we had our morning service. In these things I pray, Lord, in Jesus' name. Holiness unto the Lord. And let his name be praised forever. Amen. Hey, you guys, if you want, if I might take one quick minute. Whenever I say a prayer, I always end it, holiness unto the Lord. You're more than welcome to say, and let his name be praised forever, just in case you want to. Holiness unto the Lord, and let his name be praised forever. All right. All right, you ready to sing? Holiness.
This is the night of mine, and the lady sign. This is the light of mine, and the lady sign. This is the light of mine, and the lady sign. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Are you going to hide under a bush?
Yes. And a bush.
No way.
No way.
Gonna hide it under a bush?
Bush?
No way.
No way.
Gonna hide it under a bush?
Yes.
No way.
No way.
Are we going to let Satan blow it out? No way.
No way.
Are we going to let Satan blow it out? No way.
No way.
Are we going to let Satan blow it out? No way. Why? Because you're going to let it shine, right? Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Imani.
You did a great job. When Uncle Van goes on tour, you can go with me, okay? Oh, put it down?
Encore.
She's ready for part two.
Yeah, she's ready. Encore.
Let me get that for you.
Oh, thanks. That's okay. Good. So how do I follow that?
Speak when you are. You can
Okay,
ask
so
me.
how do I follow that nice singing that we've
Oh,
had?
that's going to be
Look there, that's right.
We're here to listen.
Singing is a lot easier for me than speaking, so bear with me. They asked me to present for the health group, so I'm presenting for the what do we call it, the health department ministry. I'm so used to health department. So I appreciate you guys being here. Can you hear me okay? I'm a good projector with my voice. I can project very well. So the topic that I picked is death and dying. And why did I pick that topic? I think it's a misunderstood. It's a scary topic. I know you have some children in here, so there are some parts. I'm going to show you a video at the end, and those maybe you don't want your children to see the video because it's going to give you some examples of how death and dying is. It is a process, as everybody has to go through. We've gone through it with our family members. God says that he's going to, some of us will live till Jesus comes, and some of us won't. He'll put us to sleep. So it's part of natural, it's part of just as being birthed. We rejoice over birthing and so forth, and there can be some hope in death also. One of the first things that I have learned in school, that there's always hope. There's hope in a cure, there's hope in, but there's also hope in dying too, dying peacefully, painlessly. And even though, when my mom was dying and I prayed for her healing, she did not get healed, but I know Christ will heal her, and he will make his promise at that time. Maybe it wasn't today here on earth, but he will heal her when she gets risen again for Christ, and she will be healed at that time. So I have a clicker, and I don't know what happened to the clicker. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, let's turn it on for you.
And maybe
Make
I need
sure
some
it's-
water.
So you just go forward with that or back with the other.
So, I worked in ICU for 9 years, so I have a lot of experience. Is my dress okay? It's okay. And I didn't wear black today because I'm taking this thing. I was like, oh, you wore a black all today. It was the first thing that was on my rack. So,
That's what I did.
just to let you know, I was like sitting there going, oh, I'm doing a death and dying thing, and I'm wearing all black, and I'm like going, well, let's let everybody know that was the first thing on my rack, okay? And I didn't even think about it today. But I was in ICU for 9 years. I was considered probably the specialist in that area. I wasn't like labeled the specialist, but everyone came to me if they had any withdrawals or anything like that. We had to make sure that the paperwork was all set. I had to make sure that the medication was all good and stuff and to go. I've had people come, for example, I had a man who came from upstairs, and he was causing a ruckus up there. I won't say exactly what he was doing because it's kind of bad. But he came to me, so they say, oh, when they have a hard time in medical, they'll send him to ICU. You know how that is, right, Carol? And so they'll send it to ICU, and I asked the guy, what's going on? Hey, so man, what's going on? They said they were trying him. He had a big tumor on his neck. And I said to him, so I heard you were causing a ruckus up there, and can you tell me a little more about it? And he was telling, they want to put me in hospice. And I asked him, what were your fears of hospice? And so he talked to me about it. Within, I think, 30 minutes, he signed up for hospice. We got hospice coming. And then I called the nurse up there on the floor, and I said to him, could you bring me the chart? You never brought me the chart. I need to put the DNR on there and stuff. He goes, you got him to be a DNR? And I said, yeah. And he came down, he goes, well, how'd you do it? I said, I listened. For the first thing is to listen. What does the person want? What is their last wishes in their life? If you're not listening to them, they're not going to do a logical thing. Do you see? You see what my point is? The point is to listen to the person. That's the main point. And listen to caregivers too. Sometimes the caregivers, they get set aside. But it's important. I was speaking to someone, and they said, well, they asked me how I felt in front of my husband who was passing away. And it's like, it's better to do it on the side. Say, and I said, that person didn't mean any malice. I don't believe that person was malice in doing that. But it's important to ask them on the side, hey, are you okay? Is there something I can do for you? And that will give them an opportunity to open up, not in front of their spouse or their family member that are passing away. So here we go. So I'm so sorry. I do have keynotes, and I am an Apple user, but when you go to PowerPoint, you transfer to PowerPoint, it messes up things up. So I'm really sorry. It did look nice on Keypoint, I think that's what it's called. Keynote. Thank you so much. Keynote. So there's different ways of dying. You have your accidental, your suicidal, homicidal, pending, and undermined. So I can't read. Natural. So you die natural. So there's 5 different ways of passing away. Now there's different cycles of passing away. And some people who, like, if they die in an accident, those cycles, they'll go real fast. Do you see what I'm saying? So they'll pass through those cycles real fast. But somebody who maybe has cancer, it'll take weeks for you to go through certain cycles. So you have stages of death, of grief, and loss, and that's by Elizabeth Kubler and Ross. So we have denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Now, funny is that these are things like, let's say someone is told to have cancer, or that they're terminal, and so forth. They'll go through those things. They'll go first, they'll be in denial. Then they'll be angry about it. And then they'll bargain. And then they go into depression and acceptance. But let's say we lose a spouse or a family member. You go through the same thing. It's any kind of loss of health, loss of life, loss of a job, loss of this. So any kind of loss is there. Anyone can correct me, and I'm fine with it, but any kind of loss that you have, you'll go through all these different things: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. So denial. So we have unusual, usually it's the first one to be felt. Boy, I can't see with my glasses. Boy, I must get new glasses or something. Feelings of being deserted.
Do you have it on your phone?
No. Maybe I do, but it would probably take me a long time to find it. If it was my son, it would take 2 seconds, but for me, it takes a long time. So you would have you use a defense mechanism against the pain that you're having, feelings of shock, numbness, or disconnection. So the person feels disconnected to the world. They feel like, that they were rejected and God is not listening to them, and everything is, going against them. Then they feel angry about it. Why me? Why is this happening? Everybody else, it always happens to me, So they have feelings of anger. They say you shouldn't suppress the anger. You have feelings of aloneness and separation. And anger, it gives you something to feel connected to. So it makes you feel like you're actually connected to something. Like anger helps you, because you're in denial, you felt lost. Now you feel actually connected. You feel connected to the anger. Then you have bargaining, and it is time to, can I go back in time? What if I would have done this? I could have this happened, and this could have done this, and I should have, could have, would have. When my mom was dying and I was going through the grief process, I was like, oh man, I should have done this for her. I should have done that for her, Or, you start remembering the past, then you start bargaining with God. I'll be good, God, if you do this for me, and stuff like that. And then you have guilt. I had a lot of guilt that I should have been more affectionate to my mother when she died. She asked me, one day we were sitting there at the table, and she said, am I dying? And I said, yes, Mom, you're dying. And that's all I said to her. And we were quiet. Nothing was said. I sat at the table. I didn't give her a hug. I didn't give her nothing. I just sat there because I didn't know how to react. I was kind of like in a defense mode where I was just like, yes, Mom, you're dying. That's all I said to her. So now I feel guilty. I should have came up to her. I should have said, I'm really sorry, but I never did. So those things you can bring back, but you can't change it. It's okay. It's okay. And I think my mom understood. I think she understood. The guilt can't change anything. So if I feel guilty and stuff like that, it's not going to change what happens or what can happen. It also gives us a hope of control, that we're trying to control. If we bargain things, maybe we have some kind of sense of control. Because when we're sick or when we have a loss of family members or a loss of a job or loss of anything, you feel like you're out of control. Then, of course, the depression comes in, and that's the last one. It comes, brings you back to the present, brings back you to the reality of, hey, this is happening, and there's nothing I can do. The feeling of the weight and guilt, it makes you feel emptiness, sadness, and it's, it's okay. It's appropriate to have these feelings, and allow yourself that feeling of that, and allowing to have people support you. Sometimes people don't know what to say to somebody who's maybe lost somebody or lost their health. Sometimes it's just better not to say anything at all and just say, just to be there for them. Because what you say is probably not going to penetrate into their mind, but they'll remember that you were there. Yes. Yeah. The wife was, you have different people going like this. It wasn't helpful.
Job's friend came and they stood with him for days. They sat with him.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
They did very well.
Yeah.
In the beginning.
And at the end, we accept it. Finally, we accept it. Yes, I accept my predicament. My mom accepted her passing away. She accepted that she was going to have to go through that. you learn to live a new way, a new life, and everything, and provides your understanding and truth of the situation, and finding different ways to live with your grief, even though I'm just using an example as my mom because that was my most recent. I mean, I lost my brother in 2019, and 6 months later lost my mother. So it was like boom, boom. My brother got hit by a semi-truck, and then my mother went through grieving. I had to help my mother through the grieving process, and then she passed away shortly after. So, okay, so now we're getting into this, what's called complicated grief. So let's say someone lost somebody and it's been a year, and usually they say 6 months, I give someone to a year to adjust their lives, but some people go into this complicated grieving process and they just can't get out of it. So that's what we call, they say the definition of that in psychiatric, I guess, is 6 months, right? So 6 months, I would say a year, I don't know why. I think it's a year, but when I was looking it up, it said 6 months, but I thought a year. For me, it's a year. They have problems doing tasks. They don't want to go outside. They don't want to do nothing. And they're even maybe contemplating themselves suicide. So that's when we're looking into some help with professionals. So now we're looking into the death process. And the reason why I was doing this is because there are so many times that I had in my career as an ICU nurse, people bringing in their loved ones from hospice back to the ICU because they just didn't understand what they were seeing. And nobody talked to them about, hey, this is what you're going to see, this is what you're going to experience, and so forth. And so they freak out, and they're like, oh, I remember they brought this one girl back, and she passed away at our hospital instead of passing away at her house. But they brought her in because they started getting really scared. I'm sorry. They're starting to get really scared about what they were seeing. So I kind of wanted to talk about that today. I know it's a tough topic, but I think it's important. And I think that's important. I think that's why hospice is important, because they can help you to go through each steps. So you have months prior to death. So some of the things that you might see from 1 to 3 months is maybe decreased appetite, increased sleepiness, unaware of their surroundings, increased pain or nausea, some weight loss, decreased activity, decreased insight. So sometimes you might see them wandering off their eyes. They're just sitting there looking up, with nothing. One of the things that I saw was increased sleeping. So the person is sleeping more and more and more. So they're unaware of their surroundings. Decrease in appetite. I don't know family members, but they're always like, they need to eat, they need to eat, they need to eat, they need to eat. I'm like, no, they don't need to eat. Let them be. Let them be. They decided to be in hospice. Hospice is not curative. Hospice is palliative. So we're not curing anything here. We're trying to have you die in a peaceful way. And eating is not important. If the person doesn't want to eat, he doesn't want to eat. It's okay. It's okay. So a lot of times, weight loss too.
May I say something about the eating too, because the organs are shutting down. They
Here.
can't process the food.
You want?
Okay, no,
You don't go. Okay.
They can't process the food as
Yes.
because the organs are shutting down, so the food will contain the food.
That's
So
true.
that's why don't even give them anything to eat. They can't process.
They're not. You ever feel when you're really your sickest, and you're like, I don't feel like eating, because the body is busy.
It's not pleasurable anymore at this point.
It's not pleasurable anymore.
My father passed in December 15, 2023, and I see some of what you are saying, because even with the hospice, when we reached to the point where we needed that special care,
Mm-hmm.
and the decision was made when we went into hospice, he started crying, started breaking down. preferred if somebody came into the home and gave care to him at home than for him to go into hospice. Because as you say, when you go into hospice, there's only one way out, and it's through the morgue. Most persons don't go into hospice and come back out walking.
Well, hospice can be ordered for 1 year. Then they reevaluate after a year of you being in hospice. I mean, I had a friend, the doctor said, you know, I think we should put your mom in hospice. And the only reason why he said that because he wanted her to get some help at home. So she called everybody at home and she said she was dying, which was not true. She called her, she goes, I'm dying. And they go, how are you dying? Because I'm in hospice. They put me in hospice. Well, they didn't. They put her in hospice because he didn't know how else to get her help. So he used hospice to get her help in that way. So she wasn't dying at the time, but she called all her friends. She goes, I'm dying, you know, and then, you know,
How long did
she lived, we're talking about, no, she passed away 96, I think she was 96 or something like that. And I think when that happened, when she was in her 80s, like late 80s. But she goes, what do I do, Angela? She goes, she called up everybody to say she was dying because she was in hospice. I find that a lot of people get hospice way too late. It way too late.
What would be too late?
What would be too late? Like when you're, like hours and the day before you're dying, and all of a sudden they want hospice. You know, they could have been helping with all this care. They could have been, you know, giving you things and so forth. But we'll talk about that in a little bit with the medications and so forth. But I feel that people get hospice way, 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 way too late. Yeah.
Miss Angela, before, I know it's not a question and answer thing yet, I don't know what the problem. But I could relate to what you were saying about accepting grief or the death of a family member. When my mother died, I couldn't cry. I see all my sisters, everybody crying in tears. Tears just wouldn't come to my eyes. I tried to force cry, just everybody look at me and see that he's emotional, a mess too, you know. But I couldn't feel the tears coming. When my father died, my mother died of stomach cancer, my father died of prostate. I should be in the room with him and taking the last breath. But I did not want to go in the room because I felt at the time that's a private moment between him and death. I didn't think it was necessary for me to be there to hold his hand and to see him through that moment. And just as you said, it's something that you regret that you have for the rest of your life. You feel like you could have helped your dad through the passing, hold his hand and I'm here with you, than just being dealing with it alone by yourself. So I understand what you're saying.
It's a hard thing to do because, you know, now looking back, I have to say it was about my mother, not about me, and how I felt. And maybe I was selfish to think so. Do you see what I'm saying? But I can't regret what I did or didn't do because I did the best I could. And I think you did the best that you could at the time of what you were feeling at the time. Because maybe you didn't want to go in that room because you would have broken down in front of him and you didn't want to see him to see you that way. So you were blocking yourself. You were in a defense mechanism. You were in a different stage of grief than he was. He already went through all those stages. He accepted it. When my mom, when she was in her the last words she said to me. Now my brother says other things, because I was like going, there is no way my mom did all those things that you said she did. And I'll tell you another grief thing that I had about my mother. She told me the night before she passed away, I had hospice, and I kind of was. Explain a little bit about hospice is that you have control. You got to make sure that hospice is doing what your wishes are, because they'll just do what they think is best. Okay, so when I came in there, they were giving her just a little bit too much Ativan, and she was out like a light. And she was giving a lot of morphine. My mother never took an aspirin, and here they're giving her 10 milligrams of morphine, and they were giving her 2 milligrams of Ativan. And her breathing was real slow. And I had a brother that was coming, And I said, hey, can you lay low on this stuff? Because they're gonna drive out her respiratory and she's just gonna pass away. I said, my brother's coming and I think he wants to talk to her before he comes. So they laid off a little bit on the stuff and she was able to talk to me again. And then she asked me, when am I gonna die? And I told her soon. I said, you're gonna die soon, probably. And then I said, Danny's coming, my brother Danny's coming. And I said, he wants to see you before you go. Well, he came, he saw her, I left I got upset a little bit, so I left. And when I was gone, she died. So I wasn't there at her bedside, but my brother was. And so maybe that was what was needed at the time, that he wanted to say his goodbye. My mom knew that, so she waited for him, and when he came, that was it. She was done. So, don't feel sad about what you felt, because you were in a different stage of grief than he was, And so we can't, and he would never judge you for that,
Thank you for sharing. With my sister, there was a lot of pain between her and my mom. But what you just brought up helped me to understand that my mother was at that stage of bargaining and not accepting the dying of my sister. And my sister had come to the place where she's accepted it. And my mom is basically saying, stop, don't give up,
Yep.
And so I can see how that created pain for my sister,
Yeah.
but it created and has come to some pain because the way the rest of the family viewed you were uncaring to her at her moment. But
No, she was at a different stage.
she was at a different stage.
She was at a different stage than what your sister was. Your sister was at a different stage. I had a guy, for example, if you don't believe in someone timing their death, this is like so, like, as an ICU nurse, it blew my mind. I was like, whoa, I came in, this guy, I saw him the night before. I was his nurse, and he came in during shift change, and he, like an hour or 2 hours before my shift change, got him ready. He was a dialysis patient. He was sick for a long time, and gave him what he needed. I think I had him, maybe I had him for half a day, because then the next day, all his labs started looking better, and I came in, I said, oh, everything's looking better, and stuff like that. We corrected quite a few things, and he came on, he says, I want to die today. Oh my, please don't tell me those things. When an ICU nurse, I've learned, if people are seeing people, and they're talking about death, they're going to most likely die that day. They will. You're looking at me like an astonishment. It's so true. It's so true. I had a guy, he was seeing people. And I was like, he said, you see that guy in the corner over there? He's been sitting there all day long. And the guy was normal to me. There was nothing wrong with his lab. There was nothing wrong. I think we're going to downgrade him. And I said, in ICU, Carol, no, there was mirror. In Kissimmee, there's all glass. There was sliding glass doors, and a lot of times you would see reflections in that glass. So I thought he was seeing reflections from people walking past him by. And I said, well, where's that man? Where are you seeing? I didn't point anywhere. Where are you seeing this man? He pointed to the opposite corner where the mirrors weren't, where the windows were. And he said, he's been there all day. And I said, could you ask him what he wants? And I'm looking at him like, I said, I know you're seeing somebody there, but I don't see that person there, so I can't ask them. And I'd say about an hour later, he coded and he died. Okay. Now, was he seeing an angel? I think so. Sometimes I do believe that God sends angels to soothe people, and that's what maybe they're seeing. And we'll talk about that a little bit too. But Yeah, if someone's seeing something that's not there, sometimes it's CO2. Sometimes your CO2 goes really up and then you start seeing things, or you have, you're acidotic, like some people have urinary tract infections. They'll start seeing people too, or sometimes you have psychotic people seeing things going on the walls. So that can be normal. I have it right here. So, this particular guy says, I'm gonna die today. I said, okay, well, I need to get a hold of your wife. Your wife's not here yet. It was, the first thing was like 6, when we get there at 7 o'clock. He goes, I wanna die today. I said, well, let me call your wife up. And he says, okay, but don't die yet. Please do not die until I get your wife here, because she will want to be here, your wife and daughter. I called up and I said, your husband's serious. I think he wants to die today. Oh, no. I said, how far are you from the house to the hospital? 30 minutes. I said, okay. I tell him that to hold on, to not die until you get here. So I went in the room and I said, your wife is 30 minutes away. Can you wait to die for 30 minutes? And he said, yes, I will wait for her and my daughter. The daughter comes in 30 minutes away. Okay, they came in, the daughter and the mother, the wife. And it was so weird. I never seen that. She said, don't die. The wife was like, please don't die. Don't leave me here all by myself. Please don't leave me. Please don't leave me. And he goes, I want to die. And then he said, goodbye. He said goodbye to her, I love you. He said goodbye to his daughter, I love you. His heart rate was 60 something in the thing. He went down to 30, he dropped, he was gone. Right there. I never seen it. I don't know, you saw the amazement on my face. I was like, I've never seen it. She came in, they said their goodbyes, they hugged each other, and he died. And that was it. I was like, no, I was speechless. I was absolutely speechless. I've never seen that before. And some people I've seen, I said, oh, you know what? They're going to pass away by the time I get back. I go back to work, they're still not gone. You're like, and I'm thinking to myself, you're still here? I didn't want to sit there and say it like that, but I don't know what. It's such a mystery, and I think it entices people to want to know more. Do you know what I'm saying? Because it's the unknown. And how much control that we have.
I had one patient, I still talk about her today. Even the nurses and the physicians still talk about her today. She came up from Jamaica because she had cancer while she was pregnant. She couldn't get chemo or anything. She had the baby. They sent her to my hospital. And she was supposed to die like within that month.
Mm-hmm.
And every time, her eyes were so yellow, okay? And she would, when you go into the room, she would be so happy and cheerful. She's a Seventh-day Adventist.
Mm-hmm.
And she would laugh and sing and sing and sing and laugh. I go in there. All she does is sing all day. And her family came up and we get to meet the baby and everything. And the doctor said she's gonna go. We all knew she was gonna go within the month. That's what we said to the family. That woman left the hospital, went back to Jamaica, and lived
Yeah.
and died maybe maybe six months later. But the doctor came to me, I'll never forget it. Dr. Hong came to me and she said, he had his hand on his couch and he said, supposed to die. What's keeping her here? I said,
You know,
we both know.
we both know it's the Lord. She had that. She needed that connection. She needed something more. She needed some time to spend with her infant.
I have one throughout my pastorate. She was dying from the moment I got there. And no, every so often, Pastor, the time has come to come and visit. This is where I have things here and there. I pray with her. Was with cancer. After I left, 10 years later, she passed.
Yeah.
Had gone through wars and many other things in other places. And
she went not too long.
Yeah, and that's what they say too with spouses. A lot of times if your spouse dies within a year, the other spouse dies is because they lose hope and they lose that connection. But that's when it comes with complicated grief. When you have complicated grief like that, that's when you should see a healthcare professional, you know, so,
But I did grieve about 30 years after my mother died. I was with Carol, was talking about my mother, and I was start crying. I said, I miss my mother. 30 years after. That's when I
Just
really.
the time.
I saw him crying.
I made peace with my father's death because he got a stroke. I remember the last time I heard his voice, I was on a prayer line, and he asked me to tell the moderator to pray for him, and he prayed for him, and he woke up the next morning and he got a stroke. When I was over, they called me, he had a stroke, and he died about 3 weeks after that. But the preceding weeks leading up to his death, I saw him move to levels of suffering. And I did not want him to go another day because he was breathing laboredly and his heart was operating at about 5%.
mm,
And I took my family to the hospital and I told them that I want them to see him before he gets worse because there's a possibility that he might not live, see 2024. I never lived. But when I got the call, it was a Sabbath. I was at home and I cried for about maybe a minute. And I told my family that I'm not going to cry again. Because I made peace with the fact that he was suffering and there was no way for him to come out of his suffering. And it was fitting that the Lord took him out of his suffering and took us out of the suffering too. Because to see your loved one going suffering and getting low, it sucks your life out of you too. So, and I accepted it. And I think about it, but I never cried. I don't think I'll cry. Well,
I mean, go ahead.
Angela, I don't know how long your presentation is. You might need to do a part two because
Oh.
it's really good conversation.
Oh, well, let's finish and then we can have questions. Okay. Some of the things that we could do for that is offer them smaller meals, you know, or maybe some people were saying, oh, my loved one doesn't want to eat, but you know what? They like ice cream, and you could put ice cream with those shakes, those nutrition shakes, and put ice cream in there. You know, as nurses, we have our little tricks, you know what I'm saying? And then, you know, there's different things to help with that. With weight loss, also appetite, they have medications, like it's actually marijuana, and it actually helps you to, it helps you get the munchies. So when we're seeing weeks prior to death, we have like we're going to see increased pain, fatigue, confusion. You might see hallucinations. Now they were talking about hallucinations with children and with adults. Children, they said, tend to see animals in their hallucinations, and adults tend to see loved ones who passed away. So that was something that I found very interesting when I was doing the research for this. We are doing social withdrawal. Of course, we're going to increase more and more sleeping, and then they start planning their death. So they'll say, like my mother would say, I think you should cremate me because it's cheaper. That was a joke. She did say that to me. I was like, she goes, first she wanted to be buried, then she said, cremate me because it's cheaper. So they'll start talking about that. And then you'll start seeing things in their vital signs. Maybe you'll start seeing them being more bluish color, bluish around the lips, and they're colder. Because what happens is our body compensates, and they start taking blood away from our tips of our fingers and our muscles, and it goes to the organs. So it kind of shunts all that blood so that all the nutrients will come into the core body to keep you awake. So it's like in a survival mode. Am I right, Dr. Anton?
Not this area.
So when we get to around 4 to 6, we'll see abnormal vitals, decreased consciousness. We'll see some difficulty in swallowing. Dysphagia is difficulty swallowing. So some people, they'll opt to have, they want a feeding tube, or they don't want a feeding tube. So you got to find that out. And that's all got to be written. I don't want a feeding tube. You have to have that in writing. So hospice will get that in writing. And of course, incontinence, you got to make sure that they're urinating. My mother didn't, she had a full bladder, and I pushed on her blood, she went, "Oh," like this, and I said, you guys, she hasn't urinated. I put that thing in, like, I got like 1,000 or more, like the whole bag filled up. So you got to make sure that you're putting like maybe a Foley in for comfort. Okay, this is really small, so I'm going to say, so when you get to 2 to 3 days, you'll be unresponsive, decreased blood pressure, impending death. You'll get the peripheral cyanosis, is what I was talking about, the blue hands and so forth, cold hands, decreased responsiveness, dropping of the nasal labial fold, because everything's relaxing. So you start seeing their mouth, kind of going out like this. And then you say hyperextension of the neck, and you'll have Cheyenne-Stokes, which is they breathe, and then they, because they have to catch it. They're getting CO2, so their body's telling them, hey, you got CO2 too much, and you start breathing really fast, and then you slow breathe again, and then you start doing that kind of abnormal breathing. Non-responsive pupils, decreased verbal response, stimulant, and cold extremities. Then in the last 2 days, you'll have what's called a death rattle. Have you ever heard about the death rattle?
Oh, please explain.
Okay, so we can't get our secretions, when we're here, we're swallowing normal, we got our own strength. But when you're dying, you lost of all your muscle tone and so like that. So a lot of times but you still are producing saliva in your mouth. So what happens is you can't swallow it. They're too weak to swallow the saliva that's in their mouth, and you're like gurgling, like someone's drowning in a pool, and you hear that. And so a lot of people get anxious about it. They do have medications for that's atropine, and they'll put it under the tongue. And that will help with the secretions. I think it's atropine.
It needs to be suctioned.
You can do that too. I requested suction from my mother, and I did suction her out so that it would be there. But they really don't feel it. That's what they say. And the last thing to know is that people don't know this, but they always say the last thing that goes as senses for people is hearing. They still can hear you. You can tell them everything that you want to. Tell them, I love you, I miss you, I'm really sorry I did this. If you want to have your last confession, do it, because they can hear you.
Usually at that time, people gather around, you don't talk crazy around them.
Don't talk crazy. Do family stuff. I've already had a family, this one woman, she had a child from a different man. She had like 7 of them, I don't remember, 6 or 7. And they were all fighting with each other, and they were all mad. And she made her brother is the power of attorney. And they were all mad about it. And I said, hey, you guys got to get it outside. You can't keep it inside. You can't do it inside. You'll start seeing their pulses are getting fading. They're fading pulses. Decreased urine output, inability to close their eyes. So sometimes you'll see them, their eyes are open. So you'd want to try to close their eyes or put wet packs, like a towel or something on their eyes so to help them close it, because their muscles are so relaxed that they open their eyes. In fact, when my mom passed away, my brother said her eyes were blue. She opened her eyes were blue. She had brown eyes. But I said, there must be a scientific explanation, because he was thinking there was supernatural. And I said, no, I think there's a scientific. So I looked it up, yes. So people who have brown eyes can have blue eyes because you have melatonin in the eyes that make the brown. And when those cells are dying, they're not making the color anymore. So your eyes, because we're naturally blue eyes, but we're making melatonin in our eyes, so our eyes are to make them brown. But when you die, those cells are not working properly, so you might get blue eyes.
So I have blue eyes one day.
Melanin. Did I say melatonin? I said, I'm sorry, melanin. Thank you. Sometimes, melanin. Yes, it's melanin, not melatonin. Okay, so and then you might get like grunting of the vocal cords. You ever hear it? You'll hear them sometimes make a grunting. And then sometimes they get a fever because your body is trying to compensate, and so your hypothalamus will start a fever.
Does this apply the same with the children? All of us?
Each person is different. So each person, these are just some of the symptoms, not every symptom. So children can be different, or adults can be you know what I mean? I think there probably would be similar. But each person has different, maybe not everyone's gonna get a death rattle, not everyone's gonna get this. These are just symptoms that are out there that, like a range of symptoms.
It's challenging. I just throw this out that when my sister Revival was passing, my brother was administering morphine, and evidently it was a lot. And so there's a moment as he's administering what might be the final dosage, or she screamed out his name, crying, and his interpretation, I'm killing her. And I think she was coming to that final moment.
Well, she wanted to say his name. She loved him, so she wanted to say his
So
name.
it was that moment later after that, because he broke down and he said, I can never, it's going to torture me. And I said she loved you and she was calling out to you
Yeah.
because of how much you mean to her.
Mm-hmm.
But again, the interpretation, how we deal with things.
Well, you have sometimes family people, they say, oh, you know, she was dying, she was looking bad, and all of a sudden one day she looks great. You come there and they're like, whoa, you know, like, let's have a party. It's it's called the last hurrah. We always call that the last hurrah, and then the next day they pass away. It's like a last hurrah, you know. Let's talk about hospice benefits. So hospice benefits are like pain management. I'm going to take this out. Pain management, improved quality of life, support, emotional support, dying with dignity counseling, provides a planned, personalized care, respects patients' wishes and care provided at home and facility. So you can go into a facility, not to everybody knows. Claremont, I heard, has a wonderful facility for hospice. What's that? Oh, pastoral, yeah, well, that would be counseling. Maybe. Correct, you're correct. So also pastoral care, they do provide pastoral care. But the one thing is that people kind of get really, they don't understand about hospice is when it comes for bathing and stuff like that, helping, families do everything. And they only usually have them come in twice a week. Sometimes that's not enough.
In that part, is the family administering then the...
Correct. So now we're going to go to medicines here. Okay. So we got palliative care. Again, I said palliative care is non-curative. It's pain management. So we're looking at fentanyl, morphine, Dilaudid, nerve blocks, marijuana, and Tylenol, ibuprofen. Non-pharmacal interventions is massage, laughter, visual, relaxation, heat and cold. Sometimes nutrition. Sometimes they want a tube. So you have to ask them if they want a tube or they don't. And then, of course, you want to do like Foley's and stuff like that to make sure that they're not keeping urine on. And then bedridden patients, you want to make sure you're turning them every 2 hours so they're not getting sores. So not having more pain than what they have to have. You know, if they start getting bed sores and stuff like that, that's painful. So you want to make sure that you want to do that. Some of the things that we used to do, we used to take sponges with cold water and keep their mouth moist. That's very important. You know, having some lip balm, that's important. Just being there, you know, certain things like I said, turning is very important. But hospice only comes twice a week to do bathing and so forth. But the morphine is given by the patient's family. I would encourage anybody who has anybody in hospice to get their marijuana card. I know that everyone's like, ooh, marijuana. But I think marijuana has its place. Marijuana is very good for cancer patients. I got marijuana for my mother. It was fantastic. I was the caregiver. I gave it to her. She needed less morphine and was able to talk to her families. She had fentanyl patch, she had morphine, and she had the marijuana. She did very well with it.
Could you explain dying with dignity?
Dying with dignity I think, for example, dying the way you would want to go. You know, getting your wishes respected. I've had family members, one time this lady, she wanted to die, but the family members didn't want her to die, and that was not her wishes. And one of them families was a lawyer, and I said, "What was your mother's wishes? Does she had a DNA?" "Oh yeah, she did." I said, "So what are you doing here?" And every time we would wake her up from the sedation, she was like, "Hey, I want to go." That's dying with dignity, doing wishes that you want to have done. This is what I want to have done. This is what I want to do. I use an example from my mother. I know exactly that she wanted to say goodbye to everybody, but if it was someone else, to another family member, they would have had her on a Dilaudid pump. They tried to put her on a PCA Dilaudid pump, and I said, no way, because that would have killed her right then and there. But when I came in, I said, no, we're going to change this. This is what we're going to do. And I sent her home. I asked one of the hospice nurses, I said, what would you do? She told me. I sent her home, and that was it. We went home. She had one more month. My mom got to say goodbye to her brother. Her sister came from Texas. She got to say goodbye to them. She got to say goodbye to everybody. So, it's dying with dignity is dying with respect of your wishes. That's if there's any other definition.
And I would say with that is to choosing the right person. When you can't speak, who is going to speak for you? Because see, if you weren't there, what would have happened for your mom, right?
Yeah,
So it's
correct.
choosing that person who you trust to speak up for you, to be there for you. So all your wishes that they would stand by it. So
Correct. Go ahead.
And I was thinking of how, and I don't know if this might be a part, we are family, but we're not family to the one who's dying with their loved ones. And sometimes we have our own opinions of where we should be, but it is challenging. And knowing what's our place and where's not our place, and how can we be there in a way for the family through all this. I say that because it isn't easy to have fellowship with someone for so long, and then in a case where a family, a direct family of that loved one may not want the local church playing much of a role.
Yeah.
And the local church feeling, but we had a life with that person. I had a situation, I've had several where, depending on how that family member of the one who passed felt about Adventists. And one particular place didn't let us know till later her mother had died and she did her own thing. But that we took a time in the service just to be able to take a moment and grieve and talk about that person.
Also, I would say that one thing that how you're feeling as one who's dying, the things that you have on your heart, do you die with dignity in the sense that you're not vulgar, you're not loud, you're not aggressive, you're not rude, but you take what's coming to you with grace. Because people will there are people who are dying and will get real mean and nasty. Even to the last, before they even breathe the last breath, they're very nasty.
Well, they never resolved the anger part. They never moved on into the grieving process. They stopped at the anger part.
I had one. She had been on Adventist for many years. Her family thought it was pretty funny because as she was coming to the end part of her life, she was cursing.
Yeah.
And the
I
family
never
said,
cursed all through her life.
and they started laughing because they said, that's her mama, is she? What's happening, mama? And the daughter was saying, oh my Lord, we'll not be able to forgive her. Yeah, I said, of course.
She's not in her right mind.
She is somewhere else right now, and he has not forgotten her. And so it was the family struggling to understand what is happening with my loved one. But you're right, it can bring the uglies, but there are certain situations, right?
Yeah.
I have a question. Can you explain that more? I did not think about that. That a person could grieve and get stuck and then die in a different phase of the grief process.
Well, just like in Eric Erickson, you get stuck.
Yeah.
And I think that some people are just bitter people, and they just haven't resolved it, and they haven't made their peace with God. They really haven't. I mean, you have My aunt, her son just passed away. He had a Down syndrome and severe. He didn't know how to speak, but he could do some sign language. He was deaf and had hearing aids and so forth. But he died so peacefully. And why is that? Because he had no guilt. He was not living with any guilt. Some people are angry because they're living with guilt and they never asked God for forgiveness.
And some of them are just not ready to die.
They're not ready to die because they still have things unresolved, and how dare them do this and so forth. And I had a grandfather, I guess he was pretty bad, great grandpa, and I heard he was screaming, and my aunt said my grandmother said the devil was getting him. That's why he was screaming. You know, that's what she said. The devil was getting him, because she said he was just this, and this guy had different women and stuff like that. So I won't go there because this is church, you know. But she said that he was screaming because the devil, and he died on his favorite holiday was not but it's called. What is it? What do they do? What do they do for fascists? They call it I think fascist in German, but it's where you like Mardi Gras. Like the night before, like Fat Thursday, or is it Fat Wednesday or Tuesday, where they have the Fat Tuesday? So he loved going out there, and they were doing that in Germany. It's something similar because he was Catholic, and so he was going out there. It was his favorite night, and he died on that night. And then my grandmother said that he was screaming because the devil was getting him. But he had unresolved things. Oh, go ahead.
But no, I don't know if it's like weird to say it now, but like I was just thinking about when you were talking about dying with dignity and honoring. I keep wanting to say patient, but honoring your family member. I think the way I think about it as we were speaking is like, with death, sometimes you don't have choices.
Mhm.
Like you're not in control of how you die sometimes.
Correct.
And so that person could be like, I have one last thing. I can make one last decision with my life. And everyone wants to take it away and make their own decision again. And I only have one last decision to make.
Mhm.
So I think it's important no matter where we are as the support team in someone's life, allow them to make the one last decision of their own life.
Mhm. And some of these people, like I said, the different ways of passing away, some people don't even get those chances. And some of these symptoms that I'm talking about happen almost simultaneously. So I don't know, I talked about the different symptoms, like you'll hear agnal breathing, where they're not breathing normal, Cheyenne Stokes, where they're, and then you have what's called guppy breathing, but it's I can't think of it in my mind. But they're not taking like normal breaths. That happens sometimes instantly. Like, let's say if you're in a car accident, that almost happens instantly. They start, having problems with breathing, and that's it. And they don't have that chance to do all these things. But some people, who have dying and it's taken a long time, the process, they still have that chance, and we can give them that dignity to give them their wishes. And you can ask them that too. What would you like me to do for you? What would be important for you?
Now, Angela, one thing I also heard or read is that those stages that you went through, anger to acceptance, doesn't always follow that pattern. And then, no, and it can go back and
It can
forth.
go back and forth, yes.
So yeah, somebody may have gotten acceptance and they go back to bargaining, and they go back to
Yeah.
anger and that sort of thing. And they may have this and that together. And so sometimes it doesn't fall into that.
It doesn't all fall into that place. It can go back and forth. That's correct. It can go. So here are some different hospice companies: Vitas, Genitive, Cornerstone Hospice, Advent Health Hospice. Now, I'm not advertising for Advent Hospice, but they do a great job. They did awesome job. I'd call them. They were there. Boom. They gave me the stuff. call them, boom, they were there, you know. And I had one family who was with another hospice. I said, why don't you try Advent Health Hospice? Boom, they got it. Now what they'll do is they'll give you a kit. So you have that kit, and it'll be stay in your refrigerator. It's for nausea medication, Tylenol. They have all the different medications in there. And if you have any support that you needed, you just call them up and says, hey, they're doing this. They'll say, okay, why don't you give them some Ativan, or why don't you give them this? So you're giving the medications to them. Most of the stuff is by mouth. But I'm going to let you know, they do not do marijuana. So the marijuana you have to do yourself. They will not give marijuana. And then also, but marijuana is good, and I'm telling you why. Because marijuana, and I know that marijuana has its place, and God made marijuana for its place. People who have chronic disease like cancer, people who have seizures, people who have that, marijuana has its place. If you are a normal person with a normal brain, normal health and everything, you should not be doing marijuana because it makes you stupid. I'm just letting you know, it does. It makes you stupid. It sure does. And it also increases, it also increases, so stop. But it also increases your chances, like young people, just to let you know, people don't know this, but when young people are smoking marijuana, it increases your chances of getting schizophrenia. It does. It changes the mind. And when you're a little kid, you have lots of neurons. And then as you get to be puberty, you start getting what's called pruning. And it prunes those neurons. And then what happens is when you're doing marijuana, it prunes the wrong way.
You know, when I was a little girl, please don't talk about it.
Mama always gets you first before you come.
Oh no, you don't know this story. But when I was a little girl, I had asthma, and you know, it was really bad when I was a little girl. And so my grandmother, you know, they are into the herbs, so they get a little leaf. You know it though, right? And they put it in the marijuana leaf and put it in the little rum or something. And as a little girl, I was about 4 or 5, but I remember going through. I want to kill someone. Kill it. I remember going through that and thought I was going crazy, but it was the marijuana. I didn't know.
You didn't know.
Because you know, my parents give me what I need to get.
Well, my mother grew a marijuana plant in her garden. She didn't know it was a marijuana plant until someone came by and told her. And it was really huge. It was about as big as that bench over there. And she kept on fertilizing it but see, what happened was we had a duplex, and the person that my parents were renting to was smoking marijuana, and they kicked them out. But before they left, they planted some in my mom's garden. And so she thought it was a nice plant and flower, so she decided that she was fertilizing it, and it grew so big, and it was huge, like I said, as big as that bench. It was a happy garden. But she had no clue it was marijuana until her friend came, and my mom goes, well, I'm going to show you my garden. You want to come and see my garden? She came out, because my mom had a beautiful flower garden. She also had a vegetable garden. And she came out, she goes, Maggie. And my mom goes, what? And she goes, that's marijuana. And my mom goes, no, it's not. And she goes, yes, it is. That's marijuana. She goes, that's okay. I'll take it for you. So she took it. She took it. I mean, that was probably about thousands of dollars of marijuana. And my mom that was a lot of money that she took a lot of money from my mother. But, you know, my mother was like, oh my goodness, I could have get caught by the cops. My mom was very naive. She was Dr. Entum knows my mom. She was a very naive woman. You could tell her that the sky was purple. She says, yeah, the sky is purple. You know, she was a very wonderful woman. But she was naive about all the drugs and stuff. But, Marinol.
And that is controlled. It's not just using the raw marijuana. And they actually prescribe it for pain.
Yes, but they also use it for the appetite. Yeah, it's used for Marinol. Is the pill I was telling you about is Marinol, and they use it for appetite.
Yeah, but they're not. The physicians don't like to write it for appetite, you know.
Yeah. I never had. I don't know how much it worked.
I don't know if Dr. Entim writes it for his family.
So how is it administered to the patient?
What's that?
The
In a doobie.
In a- in a You can have different forms. So so what happens is that you have to go to a pain management physician to get it ordered. So you have to go to a special physician. If you need him, I do have a name for that person if you ever need him. And then, you okay? Oh, go to your grandma, right? Okay. Anyways, but you have to go to the special pain management physician. It does cost a lot of money. The insurance does not pay for it. You go to a consult with him, and then he'll order for you, and then you go to a special dispensary. He'll order it to you whatever he feels like. So he'll say in drops. So my mom had drops. Before she died, I was going to give her an inhaler, like a vapor. Vape? You can do it vape. So I was going to do it vape because it wasn't, to help her faster, to make it faster. And I do believe they probably do it in smokes too. But, since we don't believe in, hurting and stuff like that. So it was done by the drops. So you can do it in drops and so forth. I know a lot of patients, they were getting their marijuana illegally. In fact, when my mom was really sick, my neighbor goes, I'll give her some of my marijuana. And so she did, and that did help her a little bit, but we don't know where that marijuana is coming from. So when you go to a dispensary, you know exactly it's pure marijuana. There's nothing else added to it, like fentanyl. A lot of people are doing marijuana, and they're getting fentanyl, and they're dying. And what? Well, if you have a tree in the garden like my mother, we wouldn't even know how to process it. We'd be like, oh, what's the stuff we smoke here? We wouldn't have known. You got to dry, we have a professional over here. It's the button, yeah.
Now this is not on Zoom, is it?
Do we need to give you the mic?
The words expressed, but
marijuana has a place. It doesn't have a place in your children's hands. It doesn't have a place in people who have normal functioning and are healthy. It doesn't belong in your hands, okay? Because like I said, it'll make you stupid. It will. It kills your brain cells, worse than alcohol. But I'm telling you that it does have a place with healthcare with patients who have chronic pain or have chronic, like cancer and so forth. That helps a lot. No, that's albuterol. I'm just joking with you. I don't know. I've never heard of marijuana. Did it help you? You don't know if it helped. Okay, so what is hospice? What is hospice and what is not hospice? It's not Jack Kevorkian, okay? A lot of people sit there and say, oh, hospice killed me. No. You were going to pass away. Hospice just try to make it more comfortable for you to pass away. So purpose is palliative care, not curative care. We're supporting for the caregivers and families and education. Hospice is, of course, we talked about it's not an everyday thing, and it has to do with the insurance. I do believe the insurance says that hospice can only come in twice a day or twice a week. They also offer crisis care. What is crisis care? So crisis care is like if your family is getting really bad and they think that your family member maybe has only 24 hours to live or so forth, they'll give you a nurse constant for 24 hours a day until they don't think that you're out of crisis or you pass away. They provide medical equipment and supplies, so they provide everything, Pampers, chucks, bed, everything. And they have different therapies. So they have occupational therapy, music therapy, spiritual support. See, I did get the spiritual support.
music, when you say music therapy, can you explain a little bit of how that?
Someone comes in, does guitar, sings for you, and so forth. But that's what our church members did. They did that for my mom. They came in there and they sang for her and stuff.
It's a little different for the therapist.
Therapist is a little bit.
Upset when you do it like that.
Oh,
I'm honest. So
oh yeah.
the music therapy is like they go in and they would ask the family members what type of song your mom likes and so forth because those music that they're singing is therapeutic.
Yeah.
So it's what's gonna give them, what's gonna soothe them, what's gonna, if it's heaven that they want to see, they're gonna go in with those songs because it's a therapeutic Just randomly go in and sing a
So
song.
what ministers to you?
Pardon me, what song
to you?
ministers to you? Why I say that is because we have music therapy at work, and when you
Yep.
say that to them, you know,
Oh, that's
you're gonna sing a song. No, they are trained counselors.
yeah.
They're therapists.
I almost went into music therapy. I almost did.
No, that music therapy does work. My daughter and I went up to my niece's funeral, and we went. I was tired. We were going out to Long Island to bury her, and tired, and I was just exhausted. But I was also mourning. Even when I came in, I had started on my morning all over again, and so my daughter didn't know what to do. I was just like tired, just crying. I said, "It's okay, Daddy. What do you want to listen to? Black Christmas music or white Christmas music?"
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that doesn't matter. So she put on like a mixture of both. And when we started, and it was gospel. It was gospel Christian music, but it was Jasmine Sullivan and Pentatonics. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them, but they were singing "Joyful, Joyful, Joyful, we adore you," and they sang that, and I was just boo-hoo, all the way to Calverton, out in Long Island, snots and boogers all the way, But that, when I got out the car, it was fine. People couldn't tell I was crying. But that therapy of music, and what my niece, how she used to sing with her groups, kind of helped me. So it's really effective.
So that's a good point. Music always helps. And it sometimes, too, when patients were sick in ICU, they would use different kind of music. So I had a patient that was really sick, and they would put Christian music. And I had another patient with the same disease. That patient who had the Christian music lived. The patient who did not died. So it made a big difference. They came in for the same thing. So there's always hope. And that's what I said. That's what I was like. There's always hope. Hope in a cure, hope in, being pain-free, hope in Christ. That's the main thing, is that we have hope in the second coming, and we have hope that Jesus is coming again, and that this is not our only life. This was only a short period of it. There was a story that it had a big rope, and the little red piece was what we live in, and the rest was eternity. This is our only little section that we have, and so we got to make the most of it. So I did have a video. I don't think I have time, but the video was very interesting. It's if you guys want to watch it, say yes. But do we have children here? Close her eyes, because she'll be okay. Okay, so. Yep. So go ahead and play that video for me. Thanks. And it shows you different kind of stages of what the person is. So she's actively passing away.
Could I lower this piano too, just for those who...
In this video, I'm going to show you real-life footage of someone in the actively dying phase. I think it is important that people see what actively dying, which is the last phase of life, really looks like. TV and movies have really done us a disservice by showing people giving a long, beautiful monologue, then slowly just closing their eyes and fading off to death. And that is not how it happens. Those of you who have witnessed this firsthand will agree with me that is not what it looks like, and if you aren't prepared, it can feel really scary. And what I want to do is take the fear out of it by showing you it and explaining what you're seeing. That way, when you are in this moment with your loved one, you can be present, make this moment, dare I say, a little more sacred instead of scary. One more disclaimer, this is not my patient. This is given to me by a follower of mine. I have written and verbal permission from the family to show these videos. This is purely education to help you. Before each video, I'm going to give you a trigger warning. a little explanation, and then after you watch the video, I'll come back and explain a little more about what you were seeing. So in this first video, you're going to be seeing a woman sitting up in bed, fully unconscious. I want you to listen to how her breath sounds, so you will be hearing terminal secretions or the death rattle. You'll be seeing changes in her breathing. You'll see how her mouth is gaping open and how her family is keeping her lips moist with a sponge. Perfect. It's perfect. So, trigger warning, here is the video. That is the first video I'm going to show you. It's a great example of how someone looks when they're actively dying. You can see she is fully unconscious. Her mouth is open like that because the muscles it takes to close your mouth and hold it shut are relaxed. So people's mouths at the end of life will almost always be open. Her eyes are closed. You can't tell because they're blurred, but her eyes are closed, but sometimes even their eyes will be open, but they're not really there. It's also very normal for that to happen, and that's also because of muscles relaxing. Her family is keeping her comfortable. I love seeing this part because they're using that sponge, which usually has some kind of cold water or juice or something on it, to moisten the mouth. You can even put it inside your loved one's mouth to moisten their tongue. Just keep everything moist in there. They don't need to swallow it or drink it. It's just a matter of keeping everything moist. Now, what was that gurgling noise? That's the worst part. People hate it.
The truth is, behind closed doors, the P word became my secret sin at age 10. And for the next...
It's called the death rattle, which I think is an awful name, but that's what we're working with. And it sounds worse than it is. At the end of life, your body is still creating moisture to keep your mouth moist. Just like you and I, it's happening to us unconsciously right now, and we will unconsciously swallow that saliva. I just did it right now. At the end of life, the saliva is being created, but the body is no longer telling itself to swallow. So it's just sitting there on the back of their tongue, and with each breath going over that saliva and their mouth being open, it's creating a gurgling noise. People really don't like it. They think their loved one's drowning on fluids. That is not happening. Some people's death rattle will be worse than others. It just depends. There are many things you can do to help with that. One, you can just let it be because it's okay. Two, you can sit them up like they sat her up. You can use sponges to try to get rid of it if you want. You can turn your loved one on their side to help it come out of their mouth. You can give medications to help dry up those secretions. All of this can be offered to you by your hospice company as well. You guys know I love the Macy catheter. So today we because it shows a clear distinction between regular breathing and end-of-life breathing. So the way she is breathing may scare you if you're not familiar with it, and you may think your loved one is suffering because they're breathing different. But the end-of-life breathing is something that will happen with everybody. And this is because there's metabolic changes going on in your body, which is causing your body to breathe different. Your loved one is fully unconscious and not experiencing any suffering because of it. If anything, your body is preparing itself and helping itself do this and shut down. How do we know they are not being disturbed by this? We can tell by how they look in bed. Once you see this video, you'll see how relaxed she looks during these changes in breathing. If she was not relaxed, her body would physically show us by moving, being restless, throwing itself up in bed. It would show us that they were not comfortable. You'll also hear a little bit of like rhythmic moaning. That can happen sometimes at the end of life, and we know they're not really in pain because it's rhythmic. It's almost like a self-soothing mechanism that some people do at the end of life. Now, if it continued for a long time, I might give medication just to be sure, but generally speaking, when it's rhythmic like that, it's usually a self-soothing mechanism. So trigger warning, here is the video. So in that video, you see, like I said, the changes in breathing. You see that she pauses a bit before she takes her next breath at times. You see that she has that rhythmic moaning like I was talking about. A lot of that is a self-soothing mechanism that the body does to help soothe ourselves. And I'm basically showing you this just so you can see the different ways someone might be breathing and how it's all very normal. Now this last video is showing her very last phases of life. This last breath that you're going to see is called agonal breathing. Agonal breathing is not a true breath. It's a reflex that all of us have, and if you're dying a natural death, which people do on hospice, you're dying from something, but you're naturally allowing the body to shut down on its own. Everyone will breathe like this, and it's a reflex, and it's kind of like the last kind of breaths your body will take, and they're probably not really actually getting any air. It's just a reflex, and it can look like, people will call it guppy breathing. When someone doesn't know what's going on, they'll say they were gasping for air. That is not what is happening. You can clearly see this woman is very, very comfortable, and she's just experiencing agonal breathing. Again, a very biological, normal, and expected part of end of life. So trigger warning, here is that video. Okay, so that is agonal breathing, a perfect example of what agonal breathing looks like. Again, none of these videos are meant to be, nor do I think they are, disturbing. People think things like this can look disturbing because they're not used to seeing it. We are shielded from the most natural part of life, and that is death. Showing these videos, helping explain what you're seeing, can help you understand that this is not something that needs to be hidden. In fact, we need to bring it into existence, show people what death and dying looks like so you can have a better experience. Losing someone is already sad enough. Then creating chaos around it because you don't understand and fear can cause traumatic moments that really don't have to be. So learning about it, educating you about it, helping you see and understand what end of life looks like can really create a different scenario for you at your loved one's end of life. Watching these videos helps us understand what could occur and what end of life truly looks like. And being prepared will always help us live better and die better.
Really, they were really scared of what was going on, you know. But it was that's all natural. That's all natural.
The gag, the final one is more of a gag.
It's more a gag. That was the eggnog. I said eggnog, but the eggnog was actually at the end.
I got a question. My wife and I, as Pastor mentioned, say we went to see Esther. She was in that stage, and I'm glad I learned this here because I was telling her, I don't want to die like you're dying with no dignity. You're laying with your mouth wide open, and you're. So I think, can we put a mask on?
I think it's gonna make it
I mean,
hard.
if we're putting you on Zoom, then maybe you might want that, but it's just your family.
It's just your family.
Yeah, I just thought, that was me like that. I was just, I want to put a mask on my mouth, but now I'm realizing
It's just a natural
we
thing.
wonder why the mouth, but because she said the muscles aren't there to keep the mouth closed.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the mouth is,
Open.
yeah, so we didn't, yeah. So,
Are they
That's why you want to keep the mouth moist, because it's open and it's drying up.
Right.
The tongue, the lips, so forth. So that's why you want to take, what I usually did is, this is my mixture. My mixture. So I take a little bit of water and ice, and then we put a little bit of that mouthwash in there that they used at Advent Health. It's non-alcoholic mouthwash, whatever. And it has a little minty taste to it. And we used to use that a lot every time. So I used to.
So the mouth open is also breathing for them. So if we cover it, they're.
Yeah. So, it's all about their comfort, And at that time, I'll be honest with you, I had a professor, and he told us this thing, and it's the weirdest thing ever. He had an aneurysm, and they took half of his brain.
right? They took half his brain. He was a microbiologist. And he was one of my professors in nursing school, and he told us all the time, in the beginning of his class, he says, I died. And he said it was the easiest thing ever. It was like your body was being, you know what I mean, drawn. And he actually died, but they brought him back to life. And they took half of his brain out. So he always would walk funny. He'd always like trip and fall. And I was always like, oh my goodness, we're going to have to catch this guy because he's always tripping and falling. But he said, it's not hard to die. It's very easy. He said the endorphins that come in, you know, all the chemicals that God gives us so it's easier for us. And sometimes people say, oh, they see people, like you see loved ones, you see like children see animals. They're there to make you comfortable, to comfort you.
And that's what I was experiencing with my father. I was like in my 20s, late 20s, and I didn't want to deal with that. As I peeped through the door and asked my sister, he's gone? She said no, that he was reading like that. So I stayed away because I didn't want to deal with it.
But that's okay. You were a young person too, right? You're in your 20s.
My mother faced trauma because when her mother was dying, her mother's sister, my mom's aunt, forced her to dress her after she died. And that was very difficult for her.
Mm.
So she had never been there at the sight of anybody who had died from childhood until one day she saw her grandson. But it brought back a lot. But having to deal with her mother dying and being there,
Mm-hmm.
dressing her, and all of that. And she was only 8 years old.
Oh, gee, that's so sad.
For the young nurses many times I felt it was for the nurses.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody dies and they have to go in. It was their first death, their first experience. And sometimes they can't deal with that. It's like reading and learning about it is one thing, but actually having it happen is right.
Mm-hmm.
You never forget the first death as a nurse, or if you work in the healthcare. You always remember that because that trauma that comes with it, I think, it's just so different. It stays in your brain.
I have a question. Now, and of course, everyone passes away and is different.
In different ways,
It's all
yeah.
different.
What I gave you was a scope of different things. And people can pick and choose what they want, and there might not be something on the list that I haven't listed. So, yeah.
The first woman, she was a member of this church, and she had 2 children, and she was like, I think she was 42 or 44 years old, breast cancer. And yeah, and hers stood out to me because for some reason I felt called to be like a nurse or a caregiver for her. And so she was on hospice and she was on all kinds of medications and all of that. And You know, it's just like a death
A
stare.
death stare. The one where you're just not there. Yeah, they're not there.
Death stare. And I was like, I
What's?
think she's done.
No, you're like, what's happening? What's happening? Help me! Help me! Help me!
And then I sat there and I watched her. You know, I was like, holding her arm. And then I left. I got up and I went to tell her mom. But I didn't say anything. She just sort of looked on my face. And she screamed. She screamed.
And Joe was in
And
there too.
no.
Joe wasn't there.
No. She screamed. And she just wailed. Then I went in the room. She woke up.
You sure she died? Because
I don't know what
did
she
you
was
check
doing.
the pulse or anything?
Who, me? I didn't know what she was doing.
And then you go, what'd you do? False alarm! False alarm! False alarm!
So the mom, when she screamed, then I called, the hospice nurse came, and I explained what happened. She said death is like going over
Yeah.
a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And so she was like, she probably wasn't fully over the bridge yet. So when mom screamed, it was like CPR, and she
Yeah.
woke up,
She looked back and turned around.
and she said,
Not
and
yet.
she told me, she wants me like this. Whole conversation. So then we put her in a bed. You know, when the nurses came, cleaned her up, put her in a bed,
We should have had
and
that.
then
We should have had that video.
and then she laid down. Then that's when Joe came and other members came.
Mm-hmm.
Not a whole lot. And then she went back to that restful space. We were praying, praying, praying. I was just looking at her. And I was like, what's going to happen?
You gonna do that again?
It's like, and then she passed.
Mm-hmm.
So you
Just
never
like
said,
hours later.
oh, she's gone. You didn't say
Oh, I didn't say nothing.
that was
then.
smart, yeah.
Yeah. But
Joe was Harold's uncle.
but what you did was you saved a life. You really did. You really did, because she had doubt. And that's what Satan does. He puts doubt. Now, I'll tell you an example. When my mom was passing away, this is a great example, similar. She was kind of in and out of that sleeping stage where she was sleeping quite a bit, but then she would wake up and she says, Satan's trying to get me again. I said, what are you talking about? And she says, he's telling me I'm not worthy. He's telling me all these things that I'm not good enough to go to heaven, and that I'm not going to go to heaven. And she's telling me all these things, and he was whispering in her ear. We don't hear it.
Wow.
We don't hear it. And, I think that there's things going on that we don't see. Maybe,
Wrestle not against flesh and blood.
yeah, but it's principalities and so forth. And we have, Satan sitting there, let's get it. She's going, she's a Christian. I got to get her at the last minute. And he will haunt you down to the last minute. I saw it in my mother. I saw it in real. And I said, Mom, pray about it. You know he's a liar. I said, do you remember that? He's a liar, And then I put Doug Batchelor on, like flip something on. It was happening to her quite a bit the last week of her death.
Yeah, if Christians can feel that way, I can't imagine how sinners must be restless.
Mhm.
I have this neighbor in Georgia. She has breast cancer, she has lung cancer, and she's died. And she is so very restless. Every day she calls me on the phone, baby, you're coming over, baby, I'm coming over. Apparently, before she even was diagnosed with cancer, she had anxiety issues. And whenever I'm there, she used to tell me, I gotta come over here. I can sleep when you're next door. When you're not here, I can't sleep. Her husband leaves early to go to the gym like 4:35, and she can't sleep. When it's raining, she gets a panic attack.
Mhm.
So I've been going over there every night, giving her husband a little break so he can go shower, because he's elderly.
Mhm.
And she's like, she's different.
Mm.
She's very agitated. She's saying he's yes, yes, I'm afraid to go to sleep at night.
Mhm.
You know, there's a way that that will take away all the fear from you. And I told her about Jesus and the next life, and you might be afraid because you don't know what will happen in the hereafter. And you know, I talked to her and I said, I want you to talk to Jesus. You perhaps never have before in a phone, you know. And I said, just tell him how you feel and tell him you're scared and ask him to forgive you for the sins if you want forgiveness. And she prayed. But she's still the same. It's like she wants to, but she can't allow herself to. And Pastor, I don't know if you can give me any tips to, you know, whatever. Sometimes I get frustrated and I don't go over there because she's a little much.
She has to get to a point where she asks for forgiveness.
She did mouth the words, but that's what I'm saying.
But what
I
you
don't know
truly
how
forgive,
far
but
it's
she
going
has to
from.
she has to really search,
Right, but how can I
truly do it.
get it to into her consciousness for her to really see that?
Repeat, 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 I guess.
And then there's that text from Paul says, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord
Mm.
and talk to you are saved. And the affirming that faith is putting a confidence outside yourself and your feelings and your situations to someone who's telling you that you can trust him. Um, when folks are battling with a lot of doubts and they've tended to do this, remember, it's easier to fall back. And
Mm.
so this is a process.
Mm.
So I think even songs are very helpful because the words and songs can affirm. And sometimes we can memorize songs quicker, but we're memorizing scriptures in songs.
Or maybe a song that she remembers when she was a child, or but the thing is, I think the most hard sometimes those people, they're having a hard time letting go. They're having a hard time of letting that go because they're gonna.
You become secure in your insecurity.
Yeah, because you're letting go of your life that you had, and that's it, and you don't know what's there. I mean, my stepfather, he passed away. He didn't pass away. He was clinically dead. And I asked him, and they brought him back. They opened up his heart. They actually hand massaged his heart. He had a tamponade, what we call the tamponade, cardiac tamponade. Opened it up, pumped him up. They put like a sheepskin, so I always said, bah, I always tease him, you know, you're doing like a sheep now. He's 93 now, but I asked him, I said, what happened? What did you see? Did you see anything? He said, nothing. He said, from the time he died, and he said it was black. And he said, the next thing I knew, I was in rehab. The time, he had no time, concept of time. He was in the hospital for over a month, I think. It was over a month in ICU. He was for quite a few weeks. And then he went to the hospital, then he went to rehab. He said he didn't remember. He said the last thing he knew, he had the surgery, and that was it. He didn't remember anything in between, nothing. It was black, blank. What? No visions of heaven, no nothing. It was black.
These people are liars. May of 2023, when I went under, you know what I saw?
Hmm.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I didn't hear nothing. I didn't see nothing. I didn't even know I was here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, other people may have other experiences, but this fear thing is real, real. One of my professors, Bible professors at school, at Oakwood, baptized a lot of people. You know, Lord bless his ministry. He taught us dynamics of Christian living. He was the one that told us about the difference between justification by faith and righteousness by faith, and understanding those concepts as Christians, right? So when he went through his process, and you know, his wife died, and then he had reached a point where he was a pastor. That was what he did at his core. He was a general conference field president, vice president. So when he came back, and when he was dying, and the former president of the school I went to see him at the hospital. He was going to do a surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, he was relating, I'm scared. And he's this guy who would share about
He had to go speak somewhere in a hotel, and a big kind of, I forgot what they call it, but an image of his father. His father was big and tall, and like I don't know, the effigy or something like that of his father came
Epiphany?
and sat, huh?
Epiphany?
Epiphany, but as the figure of his father came and sat on his bed while he had to go preach the next day. He was like, "Good night, Lucy." He just went to bed and cried, prayed, went to sleep. But when he was at his end of life, oh, before the surgery, he said, "I'm scared. I'm afraid." And here's someone who's been in the ministry, been
For
with the
many
Lord,
years, yeah.
his experiences with these civil rights leaders, and doing
Them.
tent efforts. But he's telling us about his experience about being scared.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "I'm scared, but I do know one thing. I trust the Lord. I trust him.
That's right.
I trust him." He never came out of that surgery. He never came out of the surgery. He didn't
Wow.
make it. But just
And I'll tell you something, going to surgery and having passing away, sometimes that's the way to go, because it's, easy. You're out and that's it. That's it. That's what,
I think that, sorry. I think that one way, Vivian, that you could be with a person that's afraid to die. Sometimes it's things on their heart, their conscience, and tell them to be specific with God, with what they're asking forgiveness for. Name it.
Yeah.
When you name it,
yes, it has a name.
God will listen to you and he'll give you the peace.
And you,
If
yeah,
you
but
say,
name it.
"Forgive me," but you don't name it.
Yeah.
You name it, you own it, and now you can
You give it away.
give it away.
Yeah.
Turn it over.
What were you, one more question and wrap it up, or?
Just a point to ask him.
Yes, go ahead. Two more. Any other questions before we go?
Bargaining now?
Is there bargaining? This is an interesting subject because it's a subject of unknown.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people fear this, and they don't know what to expect, but there's nothing to fear. That's what she said, and that's what God says. He gives us, he did it so that when it happens, we're comfortable. He might send angels to our bedside that we see, but nobody else sees, like that man. Hey, there's somebody sitting there. Can you ask him what he wants? Just seeing visual things to make us more comfortable, So God does that. He sends endorphins. When you start dying, your endorphins go up, and it's amazing.
So just that point and another one. Remember when Christ is about to go through his struggles at the cross? He sent Moses and Elijah to comfort him. So you're right in saying that when when a godly person is dying, the Lord really sends help
Yes.
for you to go through your struggles. The other point about being fearful, we will look at Elijah, same Elijah. Elijah went on top of Mount Carmel and he had a tussle against the false prophets and he won. Then, when Jezebel threatened his life, he run.
You run.
So as what my brother says, fear will come upon you when death becomes imminent.
Yes, it does.
And so these lessons we can see that though these men are champions of the Bible, we can identify with theirs.
I'm sure that when death comes knocking on the door, we'll have some fear. Everybody will.
How we will act.
We don't know.
We don't know until it happens.
So
Some-
can the Lord teach us not only how to live, but even how to die?
Yes, he can. Wait, Luella first, and then you, and then Luella. Luella's last. Okay, we'll make Vivian first, then Luella last. Okay, go ahead.
It's not much I have to say. My
Go.
father, when my father was passed, as a matter of fact, he knew, he said the Lord told him when he was going to pass. And he took my brother, who wasn't living in the country where my dad lived, and when my brother went to visit him, he took him to the farm and he told him all that he wanted him to do, and he told him when he was going to die, and he did. He never went to the hospital, nothing. He just went to his bed, and that was it.
Oh, wow.
into thy hands.
The hands I come, Spirit, yeah.
You know, he was ready to go. The Spirit of God.
He accepted and he had peace.
Peace of mind.
Yeah?
I came in late on this discussion, but I think the only interaction that I've ever had on this topic is when I was in college and I had a friend and I was close with this person whose mother died. And he called me over that same night to come and, be with the family. And I remember we were all in the house and it was late and we all found some place to sleep. We were all in the living room on the couches and, just sitting there falling asleep. And this experience is real. It happened to me. I will never understand it. I never will. I still don't understand to this day. But we were all falling asleep and all of a sudden I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. It was like I was something was holding me. And then I heard 3 times someone said to me, "Take care of my son." And after the third time she said it, the trance went away. I was able to speak. I was able to move. I was able to continue on. And I didn't say anything to anyone because I didn't want there, to be
Judgment.
I have never understood that experience. That's the only experience I really, you go to funerals, people die, even your loved ones, but you don't actually, I've never been there or up close to see like the terminal illness or death. But when that happened to me, it was the only experience I've ever had with death and dying, and I don't fully understand what that experience was about, how or why it happened.
There is a phenomenal, when you're phenomenon, I can't remember the name of it. You're falling asleep. When you're falling asleep, you start lucid dreaming. You start lucid dreaming, and you can't move. So that happens to. There is a condition that does happen to. So that is actually a normal condition. When you're falling asleep, that all of a sudden you can't move, or you wake up, you can't move. That is a condition. So that does happen to people. So that's actually a normal condition. So it's not abnormal. And you were lucid dreaming, meaning that you were maybe thinking of this lady or something like that. But it can happen. So it's not abnormal and it's not weird. Just to reassure you, it's not weird or abnormal, because it does happen to a lot of people. I forgot, there is a name. I'll give you the name. I know the name, it's just my brain hasn't. It's not it. Lucid dream. I don't want to dismiss what you're saying, but you know what I'm saying? And you take care of your son. I don't know whose the son was, but sometimes angels speak to us too. You know what I'm saying? So it could have been an angel saying, take care of her son, take care of her son. I don't think it was her telling you that. I think it either was an angel or whatever, or there's a lot of times I get dreams and they'll tell me, hey, I dreamt this, I was something with my daughter or whatever, and I'll say, hey, I dreamt this, and she goes, oh my goodness, Mom, I actually did that, you know what I mean, or something like that, because God's trying to tell you, warn you, hey, this is a warning, or I'm telling you to do this. Jane, what did you?
Oh, just wondering, there are sometimes people snore, and they sound just like that. What about that?
Oh, well, that's because when you snore, right, this whole thing is relaxed. Your tongue's relaxed, everything's relaxed. And usually when you have like sleep apnea and snoring, it's everything, your esophagus, everything, your larynx is relaxed. Like this. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of similar, because when you're dying, everything's relaxed. So your muscles are relaxing, everything's relaxing. When you're sleeping, you're relaxing. Yeah, but I'm just saying it's all relaxed. So are we ready for Luella's last comment?
I wanted to just mention that when Zena was passing away, the days when she died. So I agree with you that they could have been on earlier,
Yeah.
but then maybe not. It depends. Um, so in other words, the thing is that when I went to with her to transport her there, and we said our last words, she was fully conscious and everything. And and Desiree was with me. She stayed with me to the end. You know, the last time I saw her when she was breathing, and we were just having a conversation, and then and I was talking, just talking with Zaina, like as if Zaina wasn't even passing away, right? And then, but I kept tapping her leg, tapping her leg, tapping her leg. Desiree said, "You should stop doing that. She doesn't like it." So I was wondering, okay, is there something to that? Then it came, I was like, okay, well, she's not ready to go yet. And so we decided to leave. It was very late. The kids were they were in the hallway area, and I stayed in the room. Desiree stayed with me, and she let me stay with my sister to say my last words with her. It felt awkward, so I don't know what I said. But the thing is she said, "Don't worry about her being alone, because oftentimes when people pass, they pass late, either by themselves because they don't want
People to see.
right. And then when you mentioned, that you wanted to leave that secret, you leave your dad so he can have his time with death, like as if it was a physical thing. That's profound, because I believe in the Adventist church, we tend to, I know I'm going to say this wrong, but I think we tend to, because we're very careful, I believe, about acknowledging, okay, the spirit that, what is, the spirits, how involved spirits are in our lives. Meanwhile, spirits, like we know, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, right? But with angels and principalities, they're always there.
They're always there.
Always impacted in some kind of way. We just don't really understand it all the time. And Sister Jackie, yes,
Yeah.
there's not always a scientific explanation.
No.
However, in a lot of cultures around the world, they experience these things all the time. And it's incorporated in their religious rites and passages. And they're like, well, this is just it. Like when you said that when adults, they see people, adults. Like,
See people. They usually see people that family that deceased from them. Yeah.
right. And then let's say in African cultures, they'll say it's the ancestors that came to really escort them into
The next passing.
yes, to help them to transition.
But isn't that comforting?
I would think so, but the thing is we demonize it.
No, there's no reason. There's no reason. They said there was a lady that, okay, in ICU it's quick. We'll take a tube out, and usually we're expecting that person to pass away within minutes or so forth. So, but I make sure I get that medicine right then and there. So I don't want them gasping in front of families, and we've had a situation. I did have a situation. It wasn't me. I had everything all set. The next day, it was supposed to be done, and they did not do it correctly. Okay, so, and then there was a problem. But we don't want to see gasping. Okay, so I'm there.
Can I ask Angela, why not? Because some people, some folks have a problem. They said, my mom was strong yesterday when I went to see her. Today when I went there, she's gone. They use that morphine a little too generous, and those folks go really fast.
Well, no, you give what, you have so much that's ordered, but you don't want to,
They're not
I mean, you have to be, like I said, from example, You have to have whatever the doctor orders. So the doctor's there, he orders certain things, right? What?
You see, like the gasping to me, like that's like you're like strangling, like that's like someone having like a. They're not hurting.
They're not hurt.
But we don't know that.
Yeah, we don't know that. There's each, okay, so what I'm saying, each,
Comfortable, they become agitated.
each situation is different. But at least I have it there in case I see that they're struggling or they're in pain or they're this. There's vital signs. So when I'm looking at vital signs, if I see a blood pressure of 180 over 101, this guy might be in pain. So I'm going to give him to make him feel comfortable. And that's what hospice does. So we become, even in ICU, as curative. Usually, I've never had any problem. Usually the patient is like that. They won't last very long without the tube.
Yes, I understand the vital signs, but when it's outside the hospital now, when the hospice nurses go into the home, they are really, it's something I know for a fact. And I'm just saying it that people, if you have family members dying and they're not hurting, they're not struggling, just be cognizant that the nurses, they can be the nurse with that morphine, and it makes them go fast.
And that's what I said. I don't know if you were here, but I did say something about hospice. As family members, we need to be there and watch what they're doing. Because when my mother was passing away, they were just giving it to her, giving it to her, giving it to her. And when I came over, because I was in school at the time, and I came back from school, and she was out like a light, and she was like, her breathing was like that lady over there, and my mom was breathing the day, in the morning, she was breathing fine. And so, that's what I had a little bit of with the hospice nurses, and they actually didn't like me because I was like, this is the way it's going to go. Oh yeah, this was the way to go. Don't mess with me. It's going to way to go. Stop the Ativan. Stop the morphine. You give it when I want it. Give it. And that's exactly what. And so that's exactly what happened. So as family members, we have to be aware of that, because I don't think that they'd have a bad thing about it. I really don't. I think they just want to make your family comfortable. I'm not too sure about what their thought of mine was.
They don't want him back. Sorry. I have a question. As Christian, I am not comfortable at all with hospice nurses.
With what?
Christian, hospice nurse. As Christian, I feel that we're killing people. We're killing people. I know that it happens. We're killing people. Are we going to heaven while we know what we're doing? We give the morphine. Last time I went to work, I remember a physician gave an order. They downgrade the patient from ICU to my unit. I administered, just listening to that. Every 2 hours, 10 ml. Who's going to do that? To a patient in a lot of pain? The person just there. Every 2 hours.
That's why you're a nurse. You have the discretion. Okay, so as an ICU nurse, it's PRN, meaning as needed. So you have a judgment as a nurse to say, hey, this guy's in pain. If this guy has maybe asthma, I had a guy who had ALS, okay? He did not want to be intubated. He didn't want to have a tube. He didn't want to have this. He wanted that out, okay? That guy's going to suffocate. Do I want to see him suffocate until he dies? And I'm going to let you suffer. That is not the way it's supposed to be. So your feeling is not quite there. Do you see what I'm saying? I don't want to be judgment on that, but I don't think that hospice has this goal of killing anybody. I really don't think so. That's why I said, as family members, you need to be there, and you need to be their advocate, and you need to say, hey, I think we can slow down on this. They're not there to, their thoughts, I need to make this patient comfortable. I don't want them to suffer. I don't want them to. Now, we'll get to this. Let's go here, okay? When my mother was dying, she had lung cancer. Did she ever smoke? No, she never smoked. She had radon. It was from the basement from Wisconsin. We have problems with radon gas. That's number one for lung cancer, okay? So she had lung cancer. We did everything we could and so forth. At the end of her life, she was doing great with the marijuana. And then at the end of her life, 1 week before she died, she just started going downhill. So we decided, well, we're gonna have to put her in hospice, because what happened, she had surgery, and then that opened Pandora's box, and it went into her hip and her bones, and bone cancer is probably one of the most painful, okay? Until you're in that position, I would never say anything, because if you're that person in pain, give me something. Give me something, because I don't wanna be sitting there in pain and having you sit there and look at me.
And that's really the alternative, that if you don't have something in place, the alternative
Is pain.
is gonna be pain. And watching that individual go through, what might be a huge journey that could be excruciating.
Yeah, excruciating pain.
I know we're dealing with two sides. We're dealing with the dying, and we're dealing with our sentiment. And somewhere, there needs to be.
There's a fine line.
What's in the interests of this individual, as I'm also hurting for what's happening. And I want to thank you, because I don't think I've ever seen in a church setting or
Talking about this.
the talk and the dialogue about this, because there's a lot of views and taboos about it, which is, I don't want to talk about it, we don't need to go there, I don't want to see others exposed to any of this, and yet, this is part of life, and it's important.
And that's where dignity comes in. This is where they're like dying in with dignity. What does the patient want? I ask, what do you want? I want to be out. My brother said, he says, I want to be out. What I knew what my mother wanted, my brother wanted to give my mom a Dilaudid pump. I was the healthcare surrogate of my mother. I was the healthcare surrogate. I came in and I said, what's this Dilaudid pump doing here? And the nurse said, well, your brother and the doctor ordered it. I said, I'm the healthcare surrogate, so what are you ordering against me? You know, so I changed it. I went to the hospice nurse and I said, what would you suggest? I want to take my mother home. She wants to go home. I know she would want to go home. I know she wants to say goodbye to her family. So I said, what is the best thing to do? She told me, she says, get a fentanyl patch. She says, get the as needed morphine and get your marijuana. And she says, you'll be all set. And then they give you the kit and so forth. But you don't, they're going to pass away anyways. There's nothing there. They're going to pass away. Do you want to sit there and have them in pain? No. First of all, you got to ask them, number one, what is it that you want? Do you want to be out like a light? I'll make it happen. Do you want to be talking to your family? You might be in some pain, Mom. But what is the most pain you can tolerate? I want to know, what's your pain number? That's the first thing we ask every day in our hospital. What is the pain level? And what is the pain level you can tolerate? Because if they can tolerate an 8, then we're not going to give so much morphine, right? And if they say, my mom was asking me, I remember I was sleeping, I was tired, and I was sleeping with my mom in the same room. This is funny. Angela, yes, Mom. Elizabeth says, my daughter, Elizabeth says that you cannot get hooked on marijuana. Is that true? And this is at 3 in the morning, okay? And I'm like, and I'm so tired. I was doing clinicals all day and I was exhausted. And she says, I said, not really, Mom. I said, do you really want some marijuana? Do you think you need it right now? And she says, yeah, I think I want some now. She says, if you think that's okay. She would ask me, if you think, I said, that's okay. Because she was asking for it. You know what I'm saying? So there's that fine line. So you just brought up that fine line. The fine line is, when are we killing somebody with the medications that we're giving, or when are we making someone more comfortable? Because they're going to end up, what is the end result? The end result is going to be the same.
And isn't it good that we wrestle with these things?
It's fantastic. It's fantastic. And that's fantastic that she's wrestling with it, because that, you know what, my thoughts, I'm going to tell you, as for my thoughts are the same way. And I'll tell you, you have to be careful. You're exactly right. You have to be careful. And that's, as family members, we have to know what our family wants, what is the outcome, and so forth. So that you got to really know that. Right now, listen what's happening in Canada. Have you heard? They're killing people like crazy up in Canada because they sit there and say, oh, they got cancer. Oh, I want to die. Well, they have euthanasia right now where they're sitting there killing people and they're giving them the equipment to do it. And so, and the government's like, go ahead, do it, because They won't have to pay for you, you know what I mean? That's a political thing, we won't go there, but it is a fine line. It's a fine line. When are we killing somebody and when are we gonna make them comfortable? What's the most important thing for them? So that's where dignity comes in, and that's what is most important for you? And that's the questions you need to ask mom and dad. That's the questions you need to express to your family members. For me, I like to talk. So I like to sit there and say, no, don't put me out.
So keep me with a little bit of outline.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, when all this came about, because people were suffering.
Yeah.
Without dignity. That's why hospice came about. A lot of people were suffering. And this little old lady, nurse, came and tried to help. And that's how hospice came about. But I'm saying, I have patients on my floor every day on oncology, where palliative care, we work along with palliative care with our patients. And we have people who don't want to leave the hospital to go into hospice, go home. And so we keep them on my floor. Once in a while, we have to keep them. And there's so many times when family member, the surrogate would say, no morphine. An example, I had this woman, she's from Haiti, and forgive me, but I find out that most of the patients who are Haitian, they have this situation with morphine. I don't know. But this is what I've experienced. And I remember the woman is in the room every day with her sister. And her sister is suffering. She has her sister picture. She said, this is my sister. When you look at the picture and look at who's in the bed, it's not the same picture. She couldn't come to the realization that her sister was dying and in pain. And she had the right to say no, because now she's on hospice in our hospital. No. While her blood pressure is going, you know the woman is in pain, right? And the sister is saying no. The doctors are furious. They say we're letting this girl suffer. Doctor, we almost go to the ethical board because of it. Then all of a sudden, somebody came up with an idea. Who is second? Because you have the first one, right? The first in charge, and then the second. We called the other sister to come in. The other sister came in, and the other sister said, oh my goodness, look how you're making my sister suffer. Boom, boom, boom. Change everything. That the woman could be out of pain. Because that's what you say, Pastor. Sometimes our sentiments, right,
Get blocks in the way of.
and then we don't realize, what does this person want? She wants her sister to be talking to her and all of this stuff, but when she gets the morphine, we can't. But guess what? She's in a lot of pain. Cancer is eating her up, and she can't talk, and she's in so much pain, and the doctor, and she doesn't speak English, so we have to get the Haitian chaplain to come and explain, and she's still not. Look at her blood pressure. Look how she is.
Wailing and
She's in so much pain. And after the other sister came, then that sister now felt guilty that she caused her sister. I still remember, I'm so sorry.
yeah.
So much pain and suffering.
But see, like I said, it's a fine line. When I made a mistake that morning and I forgot to tell my sister-in-law. She came in that night before, and she was going to help watch my mother, and I forgot to tell her, when you wake up, give her morphine shot. So I read, you have to really think ahead. When she wakes up, give her that Ativan, give her that morphine so she has a good day. Well, I forgot to tell her. And she woke up, your mother's in pain, blah, blah, blah. I said, give her that morphine right away, give her a big dose, and then she fell asleep. When hospice came, they said, Maggie, are you in pain? And my mom was still out like light. She goes, yeah, I was in pain, like this. But she wasn't. She was sleeping. And they said, oh, your mom needs crisis care. Well, I was like, okay, give it to her. You'll get a 23-hour nurse. Well, then that ups the medicine, and then the nurses are given the medicine. Then I told them when I got home, she was out. And I was like, no, you can't be doing this. So let's stop. If she's not in pain, if she's not wrestling, just let her be, But if she's wrestling and you see that she's wrestling, she needs it. Well, I thank you very much. I know it's a big thing. Oh, thanks. It is a hard topic, and I think it's a topic that you need to talk to your family members about, and I think it's a topic that nobody likes to talk about, but it doesn't need to be taboo.
Now, when we have topics like this, we hardly have a lot of people coming and turning out, you know what I mean? It's, and education is the key.
And when I realized also that young people don't want to deal with this.
They don't want to
Every
deal with
time
it.
we talk about grief, death, and dying, young folks are never around. They want to avoid that.
Yeah. Well, they have a good life. They're young. But when they get to a point, when you hit 30,